first possibility for you is that you just get out of the bus and head off, just wherever you want to go. You can leave your bags, which you don't need here. The bus is going to be locked. So, yeah. And the second possibility for you is that I will follow you I will lead you to the beautiful fountain, which is at the main market square, and then I will tell you where you can have some local food and where an ATM machine is. Yeah.
This is city center, I guess. Well, that's okay. You got to run that way. You want to be in the picture? You're trying to photobomb my picture. It's a video, you know.
To the 16th century. The Second Empire, the period of industrialization, 18th to the 20th century. And the Third Empire, 1933 to 1945. During these empires, the city had become very wealthy, influential, and powerful. Because from this part of the town, I'm going to be concentrating mainly on the medieval empire, the late Middle Ages, and traces of the Second Empire we'll see as we are the southern part of the city and also the southeast part, where the traces of the Third Empire will be visible. Here, the International Military Tribunal was the US, UK, France, and the former Soviet Union. The former Soviet Union were not very thrilled on hearing that Nuremberg was to be the location for the trials. So Berlin was then chosen as a permanent seat for the International Military Tribunal. Now, the prison, a wooden passageway was built leading from the prison directly into the court building, and brought the criminals directly into the elevator, and the elevator to bring them directly into the defendant's dock. So one of the photographs that you see is a close-up of the 21 criminals physically present. A door behind them, the elevator door. So how the number 21? Because the major criminals were all missing. For example, Hitler committed suicide along with his wife Eva Braun. Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, had 7 children. His oldest son died during the war. The rest of his little 6 children, he first had them killed, and then he and his wife shot themselves. Heinrich Himmler, the leader of the SS, Schutzstaffel, a group of protectors, Hitler's personal police force, and the most cruel organization during World War II. So he committed suicide as well. Martin Bormann, who was Hitler's deputy. Now he was missing. It's only in the 1970s, during a road construction, skeletons were found, sent for a DNA analysis, and through the teeth they found out that was Bormann. But here in 1945, they tried him in his absence, and they also gave him the death sentence in his absence. 2 more names were deleted. One was Gustav Krupp, the owner of the Krupp industry, who suffered a stroke before the war. He could not recognize anyone except his wife. During the war, all through the war, it was his son, Alfred Krupp, who made the decisions. So there was a special Krupp trial, which was one of the 12 subsequent trials held in the same courtroom number 600. Robert Ley was deleted again. His name was deleted because he was a leader of the Righteous Labor Service, a deceptive Nazi organization who strangulated himself one day before the trial could start, and right in the prison behind this court building. So 22 criminals were tried, and 21 physically present in the courtroom number 600. To Bormann, who flew to Scotland in 1941 on a secret mission. And he was arrested by the British, brought down straight for the trials. Albert Speer, who was Hitler's chief architect. Now, he was not tried as an architect because 1939 onwards, he was unemployed. 1941 is when he was made the Minister of Arms and Ammunition, and this is what he was tried for. The 4 indictments: the first, conspiracy to conspire against the system of democracy, against the Weimar Republic. The second, crimes against peace, for breaking peace treaties. The third, war crimes, for mistreatment and killing of prisoners of war, especially former Soviet Union, and civilians too. And the fourth, crimes against humanity, for persecuting people because of religion, race, for example, the Holocaust or the Shoah. And of the 22 criminals, 12 were sentenced to death, 3 were acquitted and released, and the rest 7 were given sentences from 10 years to life imprisonment. Of the 12 death sentences to be carried out on 16th of October 1946, only 10 could be carried out because Martin Bormann was still missing. Hermann Goering, who received the death sentence, requested the court to be shot like a soldier. The court refused, so he committed suicide by consuming cyanide. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'll take a break. If you want to have your cameras ready, after the yellow building on the right, Klaus will drive slowly, and to the right, the petrol bunk, and behind the tree, the east wing, the second floor, 4 tall windows. Between the board and the trees, you should be able to see the 4 tall windows, second floor, lights are on, and that's our courtroom number 600. This part here is the main court building. It dates back to 1916. And hence the Bavarian flag, the white-blue flag, and the German flag. So very minimal destruction happened here in this building. The east wing, along with the prison, was totally intact. Okay, so to continue with the sentences. I mentioned the death sentences. Now, the 3 who were acquitted and released were rearrested by the German government, and part of the denazification program, they received their sentences. The rest, 7, were taken to the Berlin Spandau prison, which was built exclusively for the Nazi criminals. There, 1966, Albert Speer, along with Baldur von Schirach, the leader of the Hitler Youth, were released after their 20 years imprisonment. From 1966 to 1987, a massive prison was maintained for one Nazi criminal, Rudolf Hess. Now, he was 93 that year. In 1987, he strangulated himself. And this was the only time where the German government considered having a Nazi criminal buried, because prior to that, after the death sentences were carried out, the bodies were all cremated, ashes were disposed of secretly. So no pilgrimage area for the neo-Nazis. But Rudolf Hess's burial changed that, because since then the neo-Nazis always assembled at his grave through a pilgrimage, and that changed again a couple of years back when the German government gave us a pleasant surprise, had Hess's remains dug out, and they dumped all the remains at sea now. That the gravestones are laid on a horizontal position, and which is unique for southern Germany. Flower bouquets decorated here brightens up the place. Any time of the day, any time of the year, this place looks great.
For a cemetery.
Okay, so you're coming. I hope no street tram is behind us, because we are on the tracks of the street tram. So here, try our luck to the right now. I'm trying slowly. There, you see how the flower bouquets brighten up the place? And notice some rose bushes, especially the ones that are growing on the ground. Okay, thousands of varieties of rose bushes in the cemetery. Now this will knock your socks off. Some of the rose bushes date back to 155 years. Okay, and very important dignitaries buried here. Pirkheimer. Winibold Pirkheimer was a humanist, and he was Dürer's childhood friend. How many of you have heard the name Dürer? And that's the white-blue flag. That's the Bavarian flag. Next to it you see is the Franconian flag. the red-white flag. So here I need to mention this distinction between the Franconians and the Bavarians. So you are in the central Franconian basin, but you are in the state of Bavaria officially. But remember, you want to be safe in the city, call people Franconian. Never say the word Bavarian. Okay, and that's why you see the Franconian flag hoisted a little higher than the Bavarian flag, symbolic. Yeah, they don't like each other. They like to be, independent of each other. So they have their independent cuisine, their independent sausages, and their independent dialect. Dogs, medieval times, when it started raining heavily, the dogs and cats were not allowed to stay with the people, the family members, right? So they were made to live on the rooftop. Now, when it started raining heavily, the dogs and the cats could not hold on to the thatched roofs. They would start falling from down, falling from up there. And that's why pouring cats and dogs. The families would know it's raining outside, and that's why the dogs and cats are falling down. So pouring cats and dogs. Lookensland meaning peeping into town, peep into town. One of the two civic buildings. The second one is, of course, the building next to it, which was the granary and the imperial stables. The Lookensland was built in 40 days and 40 nights, simply so that from that tower, people could peek into the next tower here, into the Castellan's tower, because the city, the wealthy citizens especially, the city council, were not fond of the Castellan. The Castellan was responsible for the castle here, the upkeep of the castle while the emperor was away. So they did not trust him. They believed he swindled money, and so they would keep an eye on him 24 hours, day and night. Watch in this man then fled to Bamberg. Oh, there she is. Okay.
Right away, and then I went no place else, just right over there, and I really apologize. They're waiting. She was so nice. She knew I felt like an idiot. Oh God.
What kind of camera do you get?
I got a little Nikon cool pic. Yeah, it does a lot of things. Well, the few pictures I got aren't very good. Yeah, that's it. Oh God.
The walls. The construction of the walls and the towers, they come from different periods of time. The construction of the inner walls was the earliest, and that was the 13th century. It took the city 100 years to complete those walls.
Old town.
One single wall, the
Circled
inner
by
walls.
walls.
Then followed the towers in the 15th century. To begin with, there were over 120 of these towers, but today there are 80 plus, and all these 80 plus towers, they are used for various organization desks. So we have an old age home, we have studio apartments meant for people living on a low income. Then we have a theater. The theater is very interesting because we have this local rock band that plays there very often. And what I'm told is that since they earn the most among all the organizations, they share some of their income with the city, and the city in turn uses this income for maintaining the city walls and the towers. How cool is that?
All right.
And then we have a hostel. I love the name of the hostel. It's called Let Him Sleep. Cool, right? Yeah. Artist meeting hall, everything possible. Kindergarten in that section near the castle section. This is how they use these towers. The outer wall construction was the latest, only in the 18th century, and this was to prevent the drunks from slipping into the moat. Yeah. Here's the second main gate, ladies and gentlemen, to the left. It's called the Spittler Tower. And right here we are still in Plehrer. Now this Plehrer area is also popular for one more thing. This was where the first train station was built. The first train station in 1835, and the first train started from Nuremberg to our closest neighboring town, Fürth. So I already mentioned Fürth in one context here, but the train on the 7th of December 1835, now it was assembled before that, but it was supplied by George Stephenson from Newcastle, England, along with the train driver William Wilson. Okay, now the big day when William Wilson stood next to the train expecting people to be thrilled with this new technology, he saw the exact opposite reaction, because there in his home country all of them were very happy. Yeah, but here people were all scared. Why? The doctors and the scientists came up with another research report which said that human body is not accustomed to travel at high speeds. We are talking about 15 miles per hour. Okay, so with hardly any people in the train, some had to be coaxed to get into the train. They decided to carry some cargo. Now, being in this part of Bavaria, could you guess what cargo they could have carried?
Sausage.
Beer.
Yeah.
Yes, beer. Loads of beer and some newspapers. Okay, the sausage came later. And now the train leaves to Fürth, arrives back train station. The train driver, William Wilson, reaches back there in Nuremberg, and he finds people rushing to the train to look at the newspapers to see if the color of the ink had changed. And then they tasted the beer to see if the taste had changed. Of course, it stayed the same. So they said, if it's good for the beer, it's good for us as well. Only after that they started getting into the emperor would have to be elected by the 7 electors. Why the number 7? Because it would never be a draw. Aachen Cathedral, where the crowning ceremony was to take place, and Nuremberg, where the first imperial diet with the kinsman, the emperor, had to take place in the castle up there. So, matter of pride, Hitler was personally fond of Nuremberg. He called it the most German of all German cities. The third reason, a man called Julius Streicher. Julius Streicher was a local Franconian NSDAP leader. He had experiences in conducting rallies on a smaller scale in 1927 and 1929 and in Nuremberg, because he had a very influential friend, a close friend, the chief of police, Heinrich Gereis, who favored left-wing and right-wing radicals. So they allowed such kind of rallies. So these were the reasons why Nuremberg was chosen as a location for the parties. One more huge ground, which was a camping zone. So over 1 million participants, but there weren't enough of hotels or rest houses in the city to accommodate them. So here, this camping zone added a paramilitary element to the whole event. 300,000 male participants were accommodated there. The girls had to go to Bamberg because there had to be no distractions. Their focus had to be the rallies. Okay, no falling in love, no getting pregnant. Because the girls had to perform on the day of the unity and wear a white dress. They were given the white dress only if they were virgins. Okay, according to the Nazis, after the rallies there was enough of time to get laid. So that was okay. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is a model of the old Congress Hall building. Now we are going to see the building, I said, but this, if you see this beforehand, you will relate to the place when you get in there. So had it been completed, it was supposed to look like this model here. No windows, blind windows. We will see windows there which were only put by the US Army. Okay, but here you notice the building next to the lake. So the idea was to have the lake, water, the lake, serve as a mirror, reflect the building, make the building appear even larger. Okay, now to go over the next photographs. These are photographs and not models. All these are photographs now. You see the first one is the grandstand. Photograph taken immediately after the grandstand construction was completed in 1933. So here you see things missing. The pillars at the back, which made the place look very impressive and fascinating. Yeah, the pillars were blown up by the city in 1967, again to discourage the neo-Nazis from claiming this area as a pilgrimage area. And now Germany being a democracy, they would have to oblige. Yeah, because after the death sentence were carried out, the bodies were disposed of, cremated, the ashes were disposed of secretly. Okay, so no burial ground. Finally, it was only Hesse's grave. But here, they southeast of Nuremberg. And Wallstromer dammed
1337.
7 brooks to create 8 small lakes, of which the Dutzenteich is the largest. And Dutzen in medieval German meant cattails, which is a reed which resembles chocolate bananas. And Dutzenteich today means a dozen ponds. Dozen ponds. There to the right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the Luitpoldheim Park. It's converted back into a regular tree park now. And here we have an event during summertime. It's called the Classic Open Air. It's an open air concert held by the Symphoniker and the Philharmoniker of the city. And the best thing about that event, it's free of charge. Stands at a height of 120 feet. Another 90
Congress
feet
Hall.
and the roof was not added and left incomplete in the stage in 1939. You see the windows already from here. Those windows were put in by the US Army. The plan was to have blind windows in that space. And here coming up on the right through the trees and further ahead, you should have a clear view of a huge parking lot there. You see that? That's the beginning of that street, which I mentioned the Nazis wanted to call the Great Street, but we use it as a parking lot. It's a permanent exhibition hall.
Documentation Center, 2001. Uh-oh.
It's an educational institute of its own, and 70% of our visitors in the exhibition hall are students. So we have to just wait for... Okay, that's it. So our road will be clear and we'll come into the courtyard soon. So from the outside, you notice the granite slabs. In the courtyard, you will see the basic structure of the building. That's Nuremberg Symphoniker. Now, if you notice the metal and glass concept on the outside, all this is symbolic because it is seen as a visual insult to the Nazi architecture. Metal and glass. Nazis used only natural sources. No metal and glass on the outside. Only bricks or granites. And here, the red brick building, the basic structure, meant to be covered with granite slabs. So the courtyard, ladies and gentlemen, now the photograph that I showed you of the models, you relate to them. So that courtyard, that room, the glass roof, to fit in the glass, the sky part here. And here as we turn right, if we look higher up, at the corner of the building, you'll see the test labs. And all around the place, you see those pylons sticking out. This is where the seating would have started higher up and meant to seat 50,000 people. Parts of the building was destroyed, minimal destruction.
This metal and glass structure is what the architect called a spear through spear. Speer being the Nazi architect who designed the original. I don't know why this is so fuzzy.
Also called the University of Erlangen and Nuremberg.
Kind of like UW Platteville.